This is Dr. Matt Barber of Alabama Orthopedic Clinic. We are proud supporters of Ransom Reprogram, Ransom Ministries, and all of the good work that they do in our community. If you would like to learn more about us, check us out at alortho.com or barbertotaljoint.com. You can also hear more from me personally on the Ortho Real podcast. Thank you again for allowing us to be involved with Ransom Ministries and all of the great work that they do.
Hey, welcome to the Ransom Experience. My name is Matt Armbruster, Executive Director of Ransom Ministries. You're going to hear stories from people that we've served and people that serve alongside us, as well as those that we partner with throughout our community. You're going to hear about decisions they made throughout their life and things that happened through different avenues of their life that caused them to go down a path that they didn't see themselves going. And then also those decisions that they have to make on a daily basis to stay away from those decisions that they made in the past. Ransom Ministries empowers people to utilize their God-given gifts and talents in their career and for their community. All along the way, we learn how to help those close to us and also maybe even help ourselves. This is real. This is raw. This is Ransom.
With every star.
This show is brought to you by Ransom Recycling, your number one choice for electronic recycling in Mobile, Alabama. Help reduce waste in our landfills by recycling all of your unwanted, unused, and non-working electronics. Ransom Recycling is a division of Ransom Ministries that is helping to put men and women back to work. Check out ransomministries.com for a complete list of acceptable items. Drop-offs and pickups can be easily scheduled through the website. Please note that we are not accepting TVs at this time. Ransom Recycling, open 8 to 3 Monday through Friday. Help our planet while helping men and women re-enter the workforce.
With every star, we are born again. Open your heart, spend less time in your head.
Hey, welcome to the Ransom Experience, where we talk to different people that have been through our program. We talk to volunteers, people that get involved with us, and also we do some teaching along the way, kind of getting our philosophy of how we serve and what we're learning here. So today I get the pleasure of interviewing a good friend of mine, Charlie Bailey, who we've got to know each other over the years through an Outback organization, not the steakhouse, but Outback, which is a organization that has retreats for fathers and sons and mothers and daughters and mothers and sons and couples. And we just kind of got to know, they do a men's group in the mornings, and I just got to know him, and I was just drawn to like his testimony and his spirit to serve other people. So I appreciate you joining us today, Charlie.
My pleasure.
So today I want to kind of start it out, just kind of telling those listeners out there just who's Charlie Bailey. Well, tell us a little bit about you.
Sure, Matt. And thanks for having me. It's an honor to be able to share a little bit. Born and raised here in Mobile. I grew up somewhat of a rebellious teenager, a little bit of trouble here and there, but nothing really bad. I grew up in the church, always had head knowledge of who Christ is, but never any heart knowledge, and ended up going to University of Alabama, where I like to say I majored in the acts of the sinful nature, as the Bible calls it. But the greatest thing that happened to me in college, I met my wife that I am married to for now 37 years.
Wow.
And, when I went to work in the financial services industry, the first half of my life, I was more focused on selfish ambition and, acquiring the things that I thought I should acquire that were important. But again, never had that relationship with the Lord. And it took, the Lord really got my attention. It took an event. I was at a fraternity reunion with a group of guys. I was in my early 30s. We were at a hunting camp up in Clark County, my family has. And we were playing cards and drinking all weekend. And that night, had the bright idea to run into town to get something to eat. It was very late, and I'd had way too much to drink, as did the two other guys I was with. And we drive in, and sure enough, we get pulled over and get taken to jail. And I'm sitting in jail. At that time, I had 3 young children, and I'm thinking about my wife. I'm thinking about my family. I'm thinking about my clients. What kind of person is this looking like? And I literally had a crisis of belief. And I reached out, I cried out to God, and I said, I can't keep going like I'm going. Please help me. And not long after that, I mean like maybe 2 weeks after that, he put a man in my life that mentored me. I went to his house every Wednesday morning for a year, and I began my walk with the Lord. And since that time, involved with several different ministries, Promise Keepers, Young Life, JH Outback that you mentioned. Then about 10 years or so ago, I read a book called Radical. It's written by a guy named David Platt, pastor of a big church up in Birmingham. And the gist of the book was to think outside the box when it comes to ministry. Like, do something out of your comfort zone. And it ended up being so transformational for me, because a couple of weeks after that, an opportunity came up to be able to tutor GED at Mobile County Metro Jail. That came up, and I thought, that would be definitely out of my comfort zone, because up until that point, anytime I ever thought about guys that were incarcerated, I'm like, lock them up, throw away the key. So I started doing that, and it morphed into ministry at Metro, because the head chaplain at Metro at that time was a guy named Kenny Davis. And Kenny and I, we hit it off right off the bat. We couldn't be from more different backgrounds. Kenny came from the street, and Kenny had a radical transformation in prison and ended up becoming a pastor and a full-time chaplain at Metro, and we just clicked. We saw something anyway, and he approached me. He said, I want you to start going with me into the back of the jail, because I can see that you've got a heart for these guys. And I started going in the back with him, and the Lord began to reveal to me that these guys that are locked up, I love them just as much as I love you. And they are just as much my children as you are. And he also revealed to me that unbeknownst to me, I would have never in a million years have thought that I have a gift to be able to relate to these guys. And so over the next 3.5 years, I was going in the back several times a week, and I gravitated towards the guys that had the most serious charges, because they were the ones that were there the longest. Therefore, you're able to develop a deeper relationship. And Kenny, being from the street, gave me a lot of credibility with those guys, because a lot of them knew him from the street. I remember one of the first times we went into the back, we walked into what they call one of the wedges, and we were talking, and there's 30 guys or so standing around, and Kenny said, "Hey guys, this guy right here, Charlie, is my homeboy. Don't nobody mess with him." and that gave me a lot of credibility. But one story that really stands out to me, I had developed a relationship with a guy he's a career convict. He was in there waiting to be tried for murder. And his street name was Bank Robber. And we developed a relationship. He'd been in and out of prison his whole life. And he told me before, he goes, "Charlie, I'm not a religious guy." He goes, I appreciate, what you're doing and all that. but we struck a friendship, and he shared some personal things with me. And one day he got in trouble. He stabbed a guy and got put in what they call the hole. And he was put in, it's a solitary confinement, and he was in there for, I think, 60 days. And when he got out, he asked if he could come see Kenny and me at the chaplain's office. And he sat down and he just started sobbing. He looked at me, he said, "I told you, I'm not a religious guy, but I met Jesus. I know who he is." And it was so powerful and impactful to me to see such a movement of God. And as I look back on that time, it was probably the biggest growth period for me spiritually, to see his movement in so many different ways. And after my time at Metro, I ended up going up to Holman Prison, which is in Atmore. I did that for about 6 months, and that was an entirely different experience, because a lot of those guys, the majority of them are there, they have a life sentence, a big one. So you see a lot of hopelessness.
Yeah.
And the conditions were really tough.
Yeah. So you went from financial guy, living life for, yourself pretty much as your own kind of
Absolutely.
testimony, more about, getting ahead, doing all the things that the world pretty much tells you is success. And then next thing you know, you're in the back wedges of Metro talking to a guy that never even told you he didn't want anything to do really with religion or any of that. But the cool thing about it is what you said earlier is that you were available. It was about community. It was about relationship. It was about you just being there and being out of your comfort zone, because definitely that is not the comfort zone for you or most people. Most people are not going to go
Definitely.
be around. But I always tell people, think about this, is that when you put yourself out there, and just say, you know what, I'm just going to be here and be available. And we talk a lot about this on this podcast, is that, serving other people is not really that complicated. It's just being there.
Yeah.
And being open to what they have.
It is. And I found that amazingly, God gave me a heart for guys that are locked up, that are incarcerated. And again, I would never have thought that. But, I stepped out, and it continues to be a fantastic way to be able to minister and to use the gifts that he's given me.
Yeah.
And a lot of those gifts I didn't know I had until I stepped out.
Exactly, because we kind of limit ourselves because we think, well, I'd never be any good at that because I've never been to jail. I've never been in that situation. Well, you had been in jail. You kind of shared that, but nothing like these guys really. And your upbringing was different than theirs. And what am I going to have in common with them? And the thing about it is I've realized is that God made everyone for a relationship, no matter how poor, how rich, how smart, how dumb, whatever you are, he's made you for a relationship. So everyone is striving for that relationship. So that's what gives us credibility, but also gives us connection.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter where you come from. Stepping out is what opens up the gifts that you've already got in you. And you can bring a lot to the table. And that's what I've learned with a lot of the people that serve with us, is that they didn't even realize that they had a drawing to that kind of person. So you said something about earlier about, this just wasn't, something I envisioned myself doing. I didn't understand it. So tell me the process of that. So like the guy kind of told you, he saw something in you. Hey, why don't you start coming to Metro or whatever? How did that feel like at first? Were you fearful?
Yes and no. Because I had been doing the tutoring with the GED, I started to get to know some of the guys, and I really, when he asked me to do it, to go into the back, I jumped at it.
Yeah.
It was an opportunity. Was I was apprehensive, yeah, but it was exciting. And yeah, the first couple of times I went back there, yeah, I was very intimidated. But as you got more and more comfortable, I couldn't wait to go down there.
So you tutored at GED. So did you have a teaching background?
Not at all.
Not at all. So
No, and I was not a good student.
and not
either.
a good student, but you just did something that you felt like you were called to do. Because that's the thing, how did it feel to sit down next to someone that was in jail, and how did they treat you when you was tutoring them?
Well, so many of the guys, they know that you're there to help. But what's interesting too is so many of the guys that you talk to come from such a place of they're underprivileged and have never they've never had anybody just show them love and to give them a reason to hope. I used to tell some of the guys, I said, man, yeah, you may have only gotten through 7th or 8th grade or wherever it was, but a great way for you to rise above your circumstances is through getting the education.
That's right.
And then once you see some progress that's being made, it encourages you more and more.
Yeah.
I tell the guys over and over, seeing the progress that you make and the guys that we're seeing here at Ransom, the progress that they're making because they want to get better. That blesses us.
Yeah. So as you go in, like you said, I wasn't a teacher. I wasn't that great in school. Do you believe that like that hope that you are bringing by being there and helping them opens up their mind to learn?
Completely.
Yeah.
When they realize you have no hustle, no agenda, that you're just there because you care.
Yep.
That's when, and it takes a while. It takes a little bit to develop the relationship and realize, but then the guard starts coming down. So this guy really is here to help me.
So that goes back to the whole thing we're talking about. Relationships unlock education.
Yeah.
Because like you said, most of them hadn't really had that opportunity or hadn't had a role model. But when you get there and you sit next to them, it ain't about 1 + 1 or reading the words or any of those things. It's all about relationship.
Completely.
Because and that's what we try to tell people here is that, hey, just show up.
Yeah.
Just be here for our circle time. Just be here for roaming around. You saw today we were doing circle time, and one of the things that was the blessing to one of the guys was seeing all the people just coming. Yeah. We had an assistant chief of police come, and he just kind of toured the place and looked at it. And, and there's a lot of the guys sitting around here, they don't necessarily like police officers.
Right. Sure.
And it's because of situations, whatever. But we're trying to bring that stigma down and bring guys that really care about them, that are in the police force, that want to get part of it. So that was really a cool experience. Yeah. For me to kind of watch them, let me watch this guy. Let me see if he's really, because he had his big old badge out and all that. So I think that it's all about relationship. And that's what I think your story is telling us, is that it's just, first of all, about being available. It's about doing what you really feel like you're led to do, not necessarily because that's what you feel like your gift is, because, again, you don't know what your gifts are until you actually start exercising them. Right.
Couldn't agree more. And I remember when I first started in jail ministry, it was so exciting. And I wanted to tell people about it, and my friends, and it was so exciting to me. But I would tell them about it, and they would, "You're doing what?" And I was excited to tell them. And there, a lot of times they would just look at me like, "Well, Bailey, you've kind of always been off the beaten path a little bit, so it really doesn't surprise me."
Well, that's the thing, is that, when we start operating, when I started Ransom, people close to me was like, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard of. Yeah. What the heck are you going to do that, you know? And I still have people, well, not as much anymore, but like they'd always say, when are you going to get a real job? When are you going to get a job? But it's like, people don't understand our calling sometimes. But another thing is I've realized is sometimes people know they missed some callings that they had, because we talked about yesterday is how you can hear God's voice telling you to do something, and it's not like an audible voice, but just like something in your spirit, man, I need to do more. I need to help more. And then you ignore it, and then you feel bad about that because you feel like you missed something.
Yeah.
But so then that's kind of like I tell my guys, misery loves company. So if they've been messing up and they start seeing these guys doing well, then they're wanting to pull them down. They're wanting to because it makes themselves feel better, not because they have anything against that guy doing well. It makes them it shines a light on what they haven't done. And a lot of times serving others and getting out and doing those things, it shows other people, because I believe he's called all of us to serve others. I mean, you can't, because I always get this, I'm just waiting on God to show me what to do. Well, he already told you. In the Bible, it says, serve the poor, take care of the widows, take care of the orphans. So start there. Start doing something in that realm. And just like you were the incarcerated, man, they're the people that people have forgotten. They're people on the fringes. And in a podcast I just did, he says, I go to the fringes not to help the people in the fringes. I go in the fringes to reveal myself.
Oh, that's good.
So that I can see who I really am.
Yeah.
And sometimes people are scared of that. They don't want to see who they really are.
Well, I get that, but reflecting on that, and I think I mentioned it earlier, the spiritual growth was off the charts
For yourself.
for myself.
Exactly. We think we're going to go and fix somebody, but it really changes us.
When you think you're going to serve, I'm going to help someone, and he flips the script and then ends up blessing you beyond anything you could ever imagine.
Yeah, because some of the guys and ladies we meet, man, are just really good people that we would have never met without doing
Absolutely.
that. So we're going to move ahead a little bit. And me and you knew each other.
Yeah.
And then you came to me and said, hey, I want to get involved somehow. So what brought that to that point where you wanted to get involved?
I had moved on from my time at home, and when I look back on it, I recognize that it was a season in my life and my spiritual life, but I still, my heart for serving the guys that they're incarcerated was still there. The desire was there. I just didn't know where it was going to lead. And I remember you and I bumped into each other at an Outback weekend, and you said, hey man, I know you got a heart for the guys that are locked up. This is what I got going on. I thought, wow. And I guess that was, I don't know, a year and a half ago, something like that. Probably. And I started coming around, about then. And it's been great. I mean, as an example, just this morning in our circle group, hearing the guys encouraging each other. To me, that just shows growth and maturity that these guys wouldn't normally see or have. And that's just a movement of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. And that's kind of what we're not home in prison. We're not Metro.
Right.
Most of the people we serve have been to Metro probably. Some of them been a lot longer. Some of them haven't been, which is, to me, a good time to get them before they have to go to prison. We have some young guys, 18 years old, that haven't experienced that yet, but we're on the path of experiencing that.
That's right.
Another thing that I see is guys, that come through the program. I get people all the time say, well, I'd love to, support your ministry, but I'm really called to helping kids. And I think kids are great. I mean, I think we need to do it. But if you sit around this circle and you see these fathers who have kids, you are really serving kids by making their fathers fathers.
You are.
And that's kind of what I said, man, these guys sit in these circles, we could change generations. Because it's that thing of breaking the cycle of poverty. And poverty is a lot of different things. Poverty is not just material, it's spiritual, relational. Most of our guys are relationally in poverty because they have nobody. And you'll hear that in our circle time. And I always invite anybody, man, you want to be changed, transformed, come to our circle time and sit in and just listen to what the guys are saying. And they get to a point where they love to have people come. They love to have people see what God's doing in them and encourage them. So I think, as you got involved, and then now I've kind of added some responsibilities, because you're willing to do it. One's being on this podcast, but also, meeting with a smaller group of these guys we're doing some more, I guess you'd call it more counsel. It's not really counseling. It's more just building that deeper relationship
Right.
with 3 of them or 4 of them
Right.
instead of the whole group. What has that been like? I know you met with 1 of them or 2 of them so far.
Right.
Well, how do you think that's going to be?
Well, it's I'm excited about it. Young man I met with this week, who he's got some struggles that we're trying to address and do a deeper dive with, and I'm really looking forward to that because I get to share, some past hurts and how I dealt with them. I've got a few years on him. And so I'm really looking forward to getting to know him more because he wants to get better.
Yeah.
And if you find a young man like that who wants to get better and wants to improve, boy, the sky's the limit.
That's right.
Yeah.
Especially when he has someone helping him through that process. And I think it's going to be really good. I'd love to get more, men and ladies involved in what we do so that they can do that same thing, because I'd love to get it to where it was one-on-one.
Yeah.
You just had one guy that you were responding. And we talk about mentorship and discipleship and all that. And we sometimes complicate it where we have to have a commonality or we have to have some book that we have to go through and we have to do this step-by-step thing.
Sure.
And I believe that Jesus set the example for that by just doing it as we go.
100%.
And just being there, even, that kid might just never talk to you for the first couple meetings, 3-4 meetings,
Right.
not like you want him to. I mean, it's like pulling teeth sometimes, but eventually you'll see that. And I think that's the growth you're talking about, because we'll sit in this circle time. These guys, day one, it was the shortest circle time you ever had because
Sure.
no one talked.
Sure.
Or we would be talking. And so what circle time is, for those that don't know, and I think you've heard us talk about it, it's just a morning meeting that we get together when they get here and we just talk about life.
Yeah.
Today we talked about overcoming, adversities, overcoming disappointments. And then we talked about, I tried to on Fridays, is say, hey, tell me something that blessed you this week. Because it's easy to look at the bad thing. I think anybody out here listening can say, I can find all the bad things in my life and I could dwell on those, or I can just find the good things and try to dwell on that. And that's
Exactly.
biblical.
It is.
Dwell on those things that are good. So we try to do that in a circle, and it's a safe space where they can talk about struggles and going on. And then we have people like yourself and other people that come that share kind of their wisdom and what they've learned, but also what they're struggling with and what
Yeah.
they're hurting with. So it's kind of like a group therapy session without a therapist. The only therapist we have is the great physician, and he's listening to us. But I've been so encouraged by you coming, because to me, it encourages me when I see guys buying into what we're doing, because I've bought into it a long time ago. This is my passion.
Yeah.
This is the thing I love to do. And I just wish we could get more people involved. And I think we will. I think we'll get more people out here because I think one-on-one is the way that we're going to transform lives. And so I'm thankful you took time today to talk to me. It's a Friday, man. I could be doing a whole lot of other things. But this is just a really important part, is to get the word out there. And hopefully you people out there listening, you want to get involved with us, you will just step out there. And I'm going to give you at the end of the show kind of how to get a hold of us. But man, you have anything else for us, man? There's so much wisdom in this talk that I just really enjoyed it.
I would encourage anyone who is considering to serving just to do it. You may not think that that's your fit, but you never know unless you try.
Exactly.
And if you feel like the Lord's leading you in a certain way, in a certain direction, step out. And I want to thank you for the privilege, because it is a privilege to serve here.
Awesome.
I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you. And that's a great word of advice, is that just do it, man.
Yeah.
Just go out there and do something. You go get involved with Women's Resource Center. You go get involved with Victory Health, or you go get involved with some nonprofit. I always tell people, man, it don't necessarily have to be Ransom, but I'm a firm believer that we need to get involved somewhere. And you might get into the middle of it and go, this just really isn't, I'm not feeling a passion for it. Well, there's tons of places that you can go look and find other places.
Exactly.
And I think that that's what you need to do. You need to pray through it. You also just, sometimes we spend so much time, well, I'm just praying about it, you know, but we spend so much time doing that we don't actually do it.
Yeah.
So I think that's great advice. Y'all are welcome to come out here. You can come to 320 South Craft Highway in Chickasaw. Just show up one day and just see what's going on. And I always tell people, you know, just come hang out with us. Hang out with us. And I'm a firm believer, once you hang out with us, you're going to want to be part of it. So you go there, you can go to our website, ransomministries.com. You can click on all the stuff about us and tells how we started, our history. You can go follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram. Get on our mailing list, our email list. We send out emails about needs we have as far as volunteers. Send us your email to info@ransomministries.com. All those ways, follow us again on social media. Share this podcast with all your friends. Rate us and also give us a review. We appreciate you joining us today. Thanks again for coming today, Charlie.
Thanks,
and
Matt.
we hope you enjoyed it. And until next week, we'll see you later.
Too many days in the darkness without a glimpse of the light. Running tired and broken and scared, but I swear I'll never give up the fight.